Well, thank you very much. Hey, it's the Church Solutions Podcast, and my name is Phil Thompson.
And I'm Steve Lacey.
Steve Lacey, how are you today?
Doing good.
All right, good deal. I'm kind of excited because this Thursday I am going to get fiber cable. I guess that's what you call it, fiber cable?
I don't think so. But
What do you call it?
You're getting fiber. You're not getting cable, you're getting fiber.
I eat fiber all the time.
There you go. That's a different kind of fiber.
So what does the fiber come in? Doesn't it come wrapped in a cable?
It's got a sheath around it, but it's...
So you don't call it a cable?
I don't call it a cable. It's just you say, I'm getting fiber. Because you had cable, or you have cable, and you're getting fiber.
So, okay. All right.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks.
Yeah, kind of surprised.
Thanks for correcting me as usual. What were you surprised about?
They ran the fiber up to the side of my house, and then they just kind of, it's over by where my electricity, our circuit breakers are.
Okay,
so our
the
circuit
box.
breaker panels there. Yeah. And the fiber is just kind of looped on the ground before it gets tucked and attached to the house. Yeah. And it's just, I don't know. I'm sure I've stepped on it and stuff, and
interesting.
I don't know what happens if I break it. So it's very small.
Oh, really? Okay. Interesting. Yeah, they've been digging up things around here and around my neighborhood like they were your neighborhood a while back. And so I didn't expect to hear from them for at least a couple more weeks, but I heard from them this week. And so they're coming Thursday. And honestly, what I have right now, I have Xfinity, Comcast Xfinity, and I'm okay with it, what I have, but this is faster and it's actually a little less expensive. At this point it is anyhow. My wife will probably be more happy with it.
All right. Well, cool.
Yeah.
I've had it for a while now. I've been very pleased.
All right, good. Well,
I got an ad from them this morning saying if you have a referral, they'll send me $100. I thought of you.
Well,
but that's probably a little late.
It might be too late. Yeah, it might be too late because although technically when you said you got it, and then they put a little door hanger on my front door about it. I thought, oh, this is what Steve has. So I signed up for it right away, and there you have it. So we'll see how things go. Hopefully I'll be as happy as you are.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah, the world is changing. The world is changing. In fact, I think I'm going to maybe send out an email this week to some of our customers that do AVR and ask them, hey, do you still want to do AVR? Because, internet's much faster than it was even years ago. So I might do that anyhow. But and by the way, in case you're wondering, people listening here, the Church Solutions Podcast is brought to you by streamingchurch.tv. That's why I mentioned AVR, adaptive bitrate. And we are a company that helps churches with streaming video as well as other things. And this is episode number 529. And we're going to talk about, speaking of streaming video, we're going to talk about encoders, software encoders versus hardware encoders. Which is right for your ministry? And this came to my mind the other day because we had a customer that was using the Webcaster X2, and which was discontinued years ago, right around the pandemic. It was a hardware encoder technically, and so there's still some out there that you can get them on eBay, but the API that we were using kind of went away with Epiphan. Epiphan is a company that does live encoders. We'll mention them here in a little bit, but they were the ones behind the Webcaster X2. But they're no longer supporting it, and one of our customers had it.
I reached out to their technical support saying, "Hey, API is not working anymore," and because that we discontinued that 6 years ago, right?
Yeah, 7 actually. Yeah.
But it worked up until last week.
It did. So it was very reasonable, very inexpensive, and you could still get them online. You can get them on eBay and stuff. But so anyhow, one of my customers
they don't work anymore.
They don't work for
They don't work for, he said they discontinued the device 6 years ago and they dropped support for Facebook like 3 years ago.
Okay.
So
they might work for something else, maybe. Would they? I don't know.
I don't know.
Yeah. You got babies crying again. You're too old to have babies running around your house. All right. So anyhow, as I was saying, this topic kind of came up to me because I thought, we haven't talked about this for a while. And then I was looking at our blog, and which is, in case you're keeping score at home, you can follow on with what we're going to talk about today. Just go to blog.streamingchurch.tv. We have lots of great content on there. And one of the things I was looking at was we wrote an article on this years ago, and it was a little bit, it's still pretty much up to date, but it mentioned the Webcaster, and I thought, we probably should update that. So I updated the blog, and I thought it's been a while since we did a podcast. So we're going to talk about the pros and cons of software encoders and hardware encoders. So with that in mind, Steve, tell us what a live encoder is for those who may not be familiar with a live encoder.
So in order to stream, you need to take your video signal that's coming from your camera and convert it into something that can get transported over the internet quickly and fastly and with good compression and all that stuff. Right. And so you've got to encode your video from one format to another format, and they call those things encoders. So it takes your video that's coming in via HDMI and is some particular format and converts it to RTMP, which is, I am pretty sure, dates back to the mid 1990s. I think it is the real-time
protocol, something.
Real-time media protocol.
Yeah.
Do you remember real-time? Real-time, you could get video over dial-up. It was in a 1/2 by 1 inch square.
Yeah.
And it was real-time media. It was the coolest thing ever, man.
Yeah.
So, and it lives on in the format for the compressing videos lives on.
Yeah.
30 years later
today. And sometime here, maybe our next podcast we do, we're going to be celebrating 25 years as a company. You started the company 25 years ago, and we'll talk about that later. But you mentioned that when real time came out. So let's talk a little bit about software and hardware encoders. So when I came back from Kansas and started working again with the church I used to be with here in Tucson, you were part of, streaming video was going on, and we had a hardware encoder called a TriCaster, but we'll get to that in a moment. But it was okay, but it was kind of expensive. I'm talking about the hardware encoder TriCaster, and they still make them. They make lots of models, and we'll get to that in a little bit. But one of the things, we had some problems with it, and it was hard to get parts for. But we'll talk about that later. So we switched over to using software encoders. So let's talk about a software encoder. What is a software encoder? Just for a quick little definition of what that is and how does that help you with your streaming video?
So a software encoder is some software that runs on your PC or Mac, and it will take the input from your camera that's connected up to your PC or Mac and convert it into this format using its software encoder. So there's several software encoder options out there. Mm-hmm. Probably the most popular is, I would say, it was OBS, primarily because OBS, it's free, it's open source, it runs on the Mac, it runs on the PC, and it's been around probably since the early 2000s or so.
Yeah, OBS, I think it stands for what? Open Broadcaster Software, I guess, OBS. And you said, it's free because it's open source, and they do a good job with it, right? They do updates on it on a regular basis, and it's free, so it's very very cost efficient for your church.
As soon as the video game world got popular, then everybody's like, "Oh, wow, free, and it works." And so they had a mass migration of video game people over to OBS.
Yeah. Yeah. And, it's easy to download, doesn't take very long. And you can put it on, a computer. You can put it on Apple, your Mac, or you can put it on a PC, Windows, and probably a Ubuntu, right? And
yes,
all those kind of things. So it's a nice thing. And again, it's just very flexible. And so it's a good choice if you want to do streaming video. OBS there's another one called vMix, which is I think they have do they still have a 60-day free trial? I think they still do.
I think they do.
And they've updated their stuff. And if you're a church, your church organization, they will definitely give you a break. It was actually created by down in Australia with some people down there that for their church, and kind of like what we have with streamingchurch.tv, started with their own church, and then it went out from there. vMix is also a very good live encoder. It's not completely free, but it's very reasonable. And the only the only downside to it would be you can't put it on Apple. You can't put it on any OBS. You can't put it on any Mac products. At this point, and I don't think you ever will. I don't know. It doesn't seem like you ever will, but maybe they'll surprise us one of these days. But it will run on a Windows PC, so it's a good unit.
Yeah, and I think we're going to get into the pros and cons, but one of the other features you get with the software encoder that you don't always have with all the hardware encoders is you can hook up multiple cameras and switch between different feeds and do lower thirds and things like that.
You don't need an outside switcher on that, so that's good. I mean, you could use one, but you don't have to have one, especially with vMix. And it's pretty easy to use, very, very easy to use, and it's a lot of good possibilities. And then there's Wirecast, which has been around again for a long time, and Wirecast is easy to use. And you can put Wirecast on your Apple as well as on your Mac as well as everything else, other operating systems you have. Although it's not as reasonably priced as vMix, it can be expensive depending on what you get.
I think their market was really the small time TV studio kind of based things. Yeah. They have a lot of features that are geared towards being able to do a studio with green screens and stuff like that. And then they also, I think, are real big in the streaming sporting world. So they have things like scoreboards that you can update and stuff like that are all built into Wirecast. So
yeah, it's a good product. Nothing wrong with it at all. So when you get into these things, one thing that you have to do if we want to talk a little bit about the cons of software encoders would be, first of all, you almost always have to have what we call a video capture device, some sort of, which is kind of a bridge. Another word might be an adapter. You can't just plug a camera directly into it. You have to have a video capture device. And I remember when we first were doing this, we had Flash Media Live Encoder. That was a software-based encoder, which again was a pretty good encoder. But it's obsolete. It's been obsolete for years. Although I think we had a customer a couple of years ago that was still trying to use it.
Years, decades, right? It's been multiple decades. It's been out of
Flash Media Live Encoder. But I remember when we had customers, signing up the stream. There was, you had to have a video capture device. And I don't remember, what did we recommend back then? I forget what it was now. I can kind of see it. I think it was blue or something, but there was really cheap ones, cheap video capture devices. And some of those did not do very well handling the video. And I had a customer one time upset with me. He was like, well, you bought a cheap video capture device, We do recommend, if you're using software encoders, we recommend a good video capture device. There's a Magwell device, which is it's not cheap. It's not terrible, but it's around $300, and it's a great device. You don't have to download any kind of drivers for it or anything like that. It just plug and play. and that's a good device that you can use, a video capture device that goes, in front of your live encoder that's on your computer. So
it's basically just getting your camera to talk to your computer.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. I haven't bought a new computer recently, but within the past year or two. But I'm thinking they may be getting more and more open to having like HDMI input ports on the computers and stuff.
They do. You're right about that. Yes, you are right about that.
If you got a much newer computer, then that may be a feature you want to look for. That way you don't have to buy a video capture device.
Yeah, that's right.
Otherwise, you needed to have something that was going to plug into your USB port or or a Lightning port or something like that on your PC.
But yeah, good. So that's kind of the cons. The other downside to software encoders is going to be, you've got to have a computer that's got a healthy CPU. So it can be a drain on your computer's processing, and also your GPU for that matter as well. So if your computer is getting overworked, if it's an older computer, if you're running a bunch of different things on it, too many things going at the same time can create problems for your streaming video, creates problems for the live encoder. It can't keep up with things. It's struggling. It can't keep up. And you have frames that drop and all sorts of things on your video. So that can be a little bit of a problem at times.
Yeah, that's true. We have, maybe I won't mention the brand, but we have a ProPresenter running at our church, and there's been many a time there's ProPresenter people that are running the slides and do the lyrics for the music and all that stuff. There's been many a time we're like, I got to reboot the computer. It's getting ready. Things are being weird. And so, you may run into that as well. You may run into forced updates, Sunday morning and say, it's time to update your computer. This will take 126 minutes. So
we've had that happen with ProPresenter at the church I used to be at, and we didn't even use ProPresenter to stream at that point, but we used it for other purposes, and it would decide it's time to update your thing, and it happens to be 5 minutes before your service starts. So those kind of things can be very frustrating.
Yep, that's true.
So you do have a higher risk of downtime, operating systems, issues. There can be driver conflicts. There can be all sorts of little things that can happen from time to time. And so, there can be hiccups that can be detrimental to what you're trying to do when you're doing streaming video with software encoders. Okay. Anything else we need to talk about here? We talked a little bit about the pros and cons.
A lot of churches are in the place of using this. It's a lot of it is, hey, I've got a computer laying around. Right. I'll just stick OBS on it, and I'm up and streaming. So without any capital outlay. So that's why people choose it, I think, primarily.
It could be a good thing. Yeah, as long as your computer's healthy and everything else is moving along nicely, you're good. All right, so let's talk about hardware encoders. So hardware encoders, as you mentioned before about encoders, they're basically dedicated, standalone physical devices that can do your streaming, do your encoding, right? The thing you mentioned earlier about what an encoder was. And so the nice thing about a hardware encoder is usually its primary purpose is going to be encoding your video for streaming, usually. And so you can plug in video switchers to it. You can plug your cameras into the box, it's going to push the stream out to the internet. So when we first started doing this, as I alluded to at the very beginning of this podcast, we had a TriCaster hardware encoder, and it was kind of expensive. And then one day we had, this is monsoon season even as we speak here in Tucson, and we had a lightning strike years ago. It hit our church, and it blew out a module or something in the TriCaster. And so we went to get the part, and I swear we only had the TriCaster a couple of years, and it was obsolete. And so we Jimmy rigged it, so to speak, to make it work, but it was kind of frustrating, right? Because it's like, now this was years ago, right? And so all these kind of things.
Remember, was we had to ship it to Texas or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't remember all the details, but it was very inconvenient, and it had died. Unfortunately, with the TriCaster, there was a PC inside the TriCaster, so you had double whammies. I think it was a power supply for the TriCaster box.
There was some kind of an audio module or something is what it was, if I remember right, because we were able to make it work. I think Mark Small, maybe, and Jason and I was around there too. We did something to get it to work, but it was not ideal.
I think we went and took the video, had it do the video, and had it feed to a PC that had Flash Media Live encoder.
That was
where the audio was fed in, and then we combined the audio and the video. And it was a big mess.
Not the ideal thing to do, but we did it. Now, times are different now, but there are, and I just mentioned a brand, there's TriCasters. I will mention some other brands here in a moment. But the nice thing about it now, and here we are in 2026, they're very reliable now. These different hardware encoders are very reliable. They do a good job. They have lightweight firmware, and so it really can be a good thing. And I used to tell people, I remember years ago, I think when we did a podcast many, many years ago about this topic, I said, don't get hardware encoders. This is probably 2010 or whatever. And now I've changed my mind, because now they're smaller. They're little boxes usually, or you can get something that goes into a rack, you can put a rack of equipment rack on your desk or something there in the back of the building or whatever it is. And they really are pretty good. You can, they've got some of them you can schedule the stream to come on at certain times. They start up pretty quickly. They're very simple to use. If you have non-technical volunteers, which most churches have, it's very simple, very easy for a non-tech person to run them. And the software ones, not quite as easy if they had to make a change and an adjustment in something. But with the hardware one, it worked really well. And so I'm very much in favor of hardware encoders now.
Yeah, especially if you're not switching a lot of video, because you're typically not going to do that within this hardware encoder. You're going to do that somewhere else.
Yeah.
So it becomes a actually pretty simple deal. It's not simple to set up, but they're simple to stream, because they typically have a on air button on it, and you push on air and it starts streaming. So
we just, in fact, the customer I'm referring to that I mentioned a little bit a few minutes ago, their Webcaster, they couldn't use it anymore. And so they asked me, well, what do you recommend? And so I'll get into that in a little bit. We'll talk about a couple different models here, but I gave them some recommendations, and I thought, okay, I'm going to hear from this guy. He decided, he made a choice and he ordered one. And I thought, okay, I'm going to hear from this guy. Probably it was East Coast. So I'm thinking I'm going to hear from this guy Friday night or Saturday morning. And I'm going to have to help this poor guy set it up. And lo and behold, he set it up all by himself and was streaming Sunday morning with it, and was very happy. Now I'll get into the brand here a little bit. So yeah, some of them can be a little tricky to set up, and some of them may not be quite as hard. So it just depends on what you get, what the brand is, and what all the bells and whistles are. But the nice thing about it is they operate really pretty well, and they have different protocols that you can use on them. We talked about RTMP, but there's also SRT, and there's RSTP, I think. I always get my vowels mixed up. But anyhow, they have a lot of good things that I would certainly recommend. The cons to these things would be they're going to be a little higher cost up front. So we'll get into that a little bit more. And I think the maybe less flexible upgrades could be the case as well. If you want to upgrade and do something more with that encoder, you may have to buy another one, or may have to buy a different one. So they're a little expensive.
Or some other equipment in line,
Yeah. And of course, as you mentioned earlier, something like vMix or Wirecast or whatever, you can kind of, it's its own little studio, contained its own little studio switcher in the software. Excuse me. That's not the case usually with the hardware ones. And so you would have to have a video switcher if you have more than one camera. video switcher that you'd have to get. And by the way, the video switchers have gone down in price as well. So, it's not really, used to be you want to buy a video switcher, it was really kind of expensive. But now you don't really have to pay that much more money for a video switcher. So there's a little bit of a con as far as the price goes. But I think the pros, in my opinion, are much, much better than the downside to getting one of those.
All right.
What do you think? What would you recommend?
I don't know. I guess I'm kind of on the fence, but and probably what I've grown used to. And I'm not, we're at our church, we started with a hardware encoder. We had a software encoder fix the hardware encoder for a short while. Then we switched to a full-time software encoder with Wirecast for many years. Yeah. And now we switched back to a hardware encoder. Yeah. It's kind of followed the preferences of the staff that were that were over that area. They were like, I don't want a software encoder, I want a hardware encoder. Yeah. So they get rid of that one and get this one in. And the next guy may go back to a software encoder. I don't know.
Well, that's very common. Now, so you mentioned you're using a hardware encoder, and I want to talk for just a minute here about the different hardware encoders out there, the brands. What are you guys using as a hardware encoder?
We are using a Blackmagic web presenter.
All right. So Blackmagic makes several different models, several different encoders, web presenters, ATEMs, those kind of things.
Yes.
They're very reasonable. They're priced pretty reasonable. I can't remember what the price is. I didn't look it up, but you can look it up. B&H Photo Supply is a great place to go if you want to compare live encoder prices.
It's
I don't remember. It's $400 or $500, right? Something like
under
that.
$1,000.
It was under $1,000. But the downside to the Blackmagic products or the ATEM or even the web presenter can be it has to run off of a XML file, which, by the way, we will provide you if you do streaming video with us and you buy one of these machines, which honestly we're not real big on, but they do work. Is that there's an XML file that you have to put on your computer, and you got to set that all up with the XML file. And sometimes if you're not used to working with that kind of stuff, it can get a little confusing for people.
It's just a little, for those that are brand new to this, some of those that are familiar with it are going to go, oh my gosh. But when you get your hardware encoder, there's not a screen typically, there's not a display. Some of them do have a screen display. You plug it into your Ethernet connection and you go on your computer and get on your network, figure out the IP of that device, and it pulls up its interface on your computer. So you're in there configuring this hardware device that doesn't have a screen on it through your computer that's on the network. So it's a little more, like I said, it's a little more involved setup. But once it is set up, you just push the button to stream and you don't have to launch any software or anything.
Set it and forget it. So, Blackmagic, you can buy one. I'm sure people listening to this have them and you're fine with that. But again, it's a little more complicated with the XML file, just because sometimes people get a little confused, and we can help you with that. And we have done that over the years. The other encoders that are hardware that we like, Epiphan, we mentioned Epiphan that had the Webcaster X2, which is no longer, being serviced. But Epiphan has several live encoders, Pearl Nanos and those kind of things. We like Epiphan's customer service. We've had them on our podcast before. We've had them on our webinars before. They're good people. We like their customer service. It is kind of expensive to get one of their devices. So it just depends on what you want to do and what your purposes are, because they have multiple devices. It can do a lot of things. They can fly you to Europe, or, if you want to go on vacation somewhere in South America, the Epiphan will. No, I'm being funny here, but they have a lot of different devices is what I'm saying. And they're good. They're good devices and they have good customer service. I recommended that to one of our customers. There were several other ones that he was interested in. One of them was the Magwell. Magwell has a couple different live encoders. The downside to the Magwell is that it's in most of the other encoders out there, the hardware ones, many of them are made in China. And so customer service could be a problem. that can be kind of a detriment there. But this particular customer just bought a Magwell and he loves it. It's because he's only had it for a few weeks, but he likes it. And he says it was pretty simple to set up and it works.
Yeah.
You know?
And they've got a good reputation with us because we were recommending their video adapter.
Yeah, video capture
stuff. And it was the video capture cards and they worked really.
Yeah. You didn't have to download drivers or anything like that. You know?
They would tend to work first time out of the box, whereas some others were like, it doesn't see my camera.
Right.
Or my computer doesn't see the device. And
so Magwell is one. And again, you can just, you can Google it or you can go to B8. I push B&H Photo because, again, they have a lot of good reviews and specs and all that. But you can also, YOLO is another one. YOLO, which has a pretty good reputation. It's a hardware-based encoder. So there's a couple there, and we mentioned the ATEM before that. So, and there's others. There's a bunch of other ones, Ajas or whatever, or Ahas. I don't know how they pronounce it, AJA or whatever. We have customers that use those. So just do your research. And again, if you have questions about some of those things, we are certainly here to help you, and whatever we can do to help you make your life easier. That's what we do because we do streaming video. And so if we can help you in any way, please reach out to us. So what's the verdict? What should your church choose? It really depends, again, maybe on your budget. Depends on what you're wanting to do. If you have a good computer, powerful computer, dedicated graphics card, and you don't want to spend a ton of money, you could go with software encoder. Or if you want to use a hardware encoder, it's certainly reliability is there. And the risk of things not working is very low. So tired of restarting your computer all the time? Well, a hardware encoder might be something that you want to use. A little more money, but it could certainly reduce the stress and help you and your staff, especially your volunteers, have a less stressful Sunday, a stress-free Sunday. So again, I'm recommending hardware, but and Steve doesn't know. He doesn't know what he wants to use, but he'll
earlier on, I was pretty much the software kind of guy because all the hardware ones were, having to help people get them set up, and then ours, the one we did have, stopped working and pretty much shut our operation down. So it wasn't like, let's go, whereas if it was on a computer, like, bring in another PC. We got 6 of them laying around the office.
Yeah.
And
that was one of the things we used to push. We used to say, hey, if your computer goes down, just download that software encoder on another computer. We used to say that, and that was certainly a good way to do it. So 6 of one, half dozen the other. Okay, we're out of time here. And I'll just reiterate that, hey, if we can help you in any way, just reach out to us. If you want to look at our notes on this, just go to blog.streamingchurch.tv. And this is episode 529, but on the blog, I think it's called Software versus Hardware Encoders for Your Churches, which is right for your ministry. And, make your choice, do your research, and we'll be happy to help you in any way. And we should say that with streamingchurch.tv, which is us, anything you get, it will work with us. So you don't have to worry about that. Okay, we're done here. Thank you, Mr. Steve Lacey.
All right, glad to be here.
And thank you, folks, for spending a little bit of time with us on the Church Solutions Podcast. Please take care of yourself and each other, and we will catch you again on another episode. And we'll talk to you soon.